Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics on another very eventful, busy week in state. Not so much state government, but in state politics. We are joined by Steph Perkins, Executive Director of Promo. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Representative Bruce Franks, friend of the show. Welcome back, sir.
Man, good to be here as always.
Jonathan Prouty, Hancock and Prouty, longtime Republican operative. Welcome back, sir.
Good to be back.
Representative Shamed Dogan, St. Louis County, Baldwin, Missouri, home of Holy Infant School. So
right around the corner from both of us.
Yep. Welcome back to the show. You know, you can't make this stuff up. This week there was a press conference the Attorney General had. First, Ed Dowd, formerly highly respected attorney, leading attorney, criminal defense attorney for Eric Greitens. He's been representing on some of the sex crime stuff what the governor's been involved with. Now he pitches that the Attorney General should recuse himself from investigating the governor. The Attorney General held a press conference the next morning, and I have to say, some folks may have wondered why there's so much buzz around Josh Hawley. When he had that press conference that I'm forwarding on evidence of felony criminal charges the governor's committed to the circuit attorney, it was a pretty impressive display.
He was very sobering. Those are serious charges in and of themselves, and it's something I know a little bit about because before I got elected, I worked at WashU doing fundraising, and the idea that you're a fundraiser and, well, you're entitled to that list, there's no way. The governor is being treated the same way any citizen would have been treated in that situation. If I had taken a list from WashU with all their donors and all their information and used it for political purposes, I'd be getting indicted too.
Bruce Franks, I mean, Josh Hawley steps up. He was quick. He knew what he was going to do. He forwarded this case. It was funny how the first thing that the governor's people do is attack him for forwarding the case to Kim Gardner. It reminded me when the governor attacked legislators for leaving when the Constitution says you have to leave and adjourn. He forwarded to Kim Gardner, but you know, we talked about this a few weeks ago. We asked the question, if Josh Hawley recommended criminal prosecution of Eric Greitens, would they treat Josh Hawley the same way? And while I've seen they've been aggressive, not nearly as much as on Kim Gardner.
Oh, absolutely. It's been pushed back, but it's been very much as respectful as possible, which is an issue because we see the difference in how they're treated. I guess my thing is I'm glad that the governor's being treated like anybody else would right now in this situation. Yep. Just a couple questions is that we knew that this was an issue before now. We knew that Josh Hawley had the power to go in and investigate before this when we're talking about the mission continues and the list, something that the governor had already talked about. And so it comes now. I guess it's better late than never. But I am glad that the governor is being treated like everybody else, and he gets to see what this witch hunt and this unjust system.
All the witch hunt, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, though, where this really took off on the mission. I mean, the governor has so many scandals, but to isolate it to this one part of this alleged felony behavior, it was a reporter for the Post-Dispatch and the AP that broke it and showed the email leading from his assistant to the campaign. That's the new thing here. I think the media may deserve actually a pat on the back for once.
I mean, I think that's so true. I mean, we have seen the difference in how the media gets to interact with the governor and the governor's office this year as opposed to previous years. And I think that made a huge difference in the media getting to ask more questions and wanting to find out what was really actually going on when they didn't have that open access like before.
Jonathan Prouty, then you can't make it up. After Josh Hawley does his job, the career prosecutors there do an investigation. They turn their findings over to the local prosecutor, the same thing that happens many times all over all 114 counties in the city of St. Louis. Then I couldn't believe it. The next day, Dowd files a restraining order against the Attorney General. Clearly a political swipe.
Yeah, no doubt. And actually, I think if you look at the timing of the filing, I think it was filed actually the day before. And I think it was a kind of a desperate last-minute legal maneuver meant to buy them a little bit of extra time and try to run out that statute of limitations. But the fact is, it goes to show that the Attorney General here is running a serious, professional, competent investigation, and the governor's afraid of what he's going to find.
And it looks like the Attorney General's reported back to the public he has found things.
He has found things.
And has forwarded that information on, as is his duty. I thought it was interesting. They attacked him for following the law. He couldn't have forwarded this to the Barry County prosecutor. By law, Eric Greitens chose to live in the city of St. Louis, chose to have his business in the city of St. Louis, or it's an odd thing, but however his charity was based here. That's where the criminal activity happened.
Exactly.
There's no other choice he had.
Exactly. I mean, there's a very deliberate process that is being undertaken here at all levels But you know, there has been some criticism of the timing of the Attorney General's investigation. You know, I think there are real jurisdictional questions that were answered recently. He's conducting this
Hat
with
tip to the
professionals.
Post-Dispatch.
Absolutely,
They'll
absolutely.
like to kick him, but hat tip here, Jack Suntrip and the reporting crew. Kurt
I think
Erickson.
that's right, and they've made a big difference in this investigation.
Shaman Dogan, you know, I'd like to say politics isn't, but with this governor, you know, Facebook and politics is everything. Josh Hawley's running for U.S. Senate. It's been an interesting evolution to see him decide to just go after Hawley. But when you think about it, it's not any different. He's not treating Hawley any different than he did Todd Richardson, than he did Bart Corman, than he did Paul Curtman when he called Paul Curtman a corrupt career politician. Maybe Curtman agrees now. I don't know. But it's an interesting thing to see the evolution. He doesn't care if he wins that Senate seat.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. The idea that this is a partisan witch hunt is now supremely ridiculous. You have the
and it was from the start too.
You have a Republican Attorney General. I mean, imagine if Chris Koster had investigated Jay Nixon and come out saying, "Well, I think he's impeachable not on one thing but on two things."
I supported Chris Koster for governor. One, it's hard to get your head around Jay Nixon doing these sort of dishonorable, unseemly acts. I can't imagine that report, the awful things that happened to that woman being done by Jay Nixon. Jay Nixon never disgraced his state. I honestly don't know, as a person that supported Chris Koster, if he would have had the courage to do what Josh Hawley's done.
Yeah, it was a bold act, and from somebody who's going to be on a ballot this year.
Yeah.
You know, he could have looked at it from a political standpoint and said,
most
well,
would've.
this might anger the base or whatever, but he actually did what he thought was the right thing legally and politically.
Do you think part of it may be, Jonathan, that Eric Greitens, maybe he's a conservative today, but hasn't been one that long, and he, you know, it's not like he was helping elect Jay Ashcroft or anyone. He just doesn't care.
You know, I haven't seen anything out of Eric Greitens that suggests that he has any loyalty to the Republican Party. In fact, when I was working for the state Republican Party in 2009, I received an email from the Greitens team, and they wanted to meet with party leadership because he was considering running for office, and the email said that he was an independent, but that his values aligned with the Republican Party. Now, flash forward to 2015, there's a roll call article that at the same time he was telling us that he was a Republican, he was meeting with the DCCC about running against Blaine Luetkemeyer as a Democrat. So I think it's pretty clear that he was shopping for a party, and it wasn't based on any sort of ideological positions that were taken. It was he wanted to find the best vehicle to get him into office.
I think there's been an authenticity lacking, really, from the beginning with Eric Greitens. But in this situation now, you see Claire McCaskill. She don't miss a trick. Probably the best politician in the state of Missouri, frankly. You're seeing now Democrats that support her. Ed Dowd, huge contributor to her, now is filing restraining orders. I wish I could file a restraining order against a designated hitter. I may have to go to Dowd Bend and see if they'll do that for me. You see huge contributors. You see former Justice Wolf come out and helping the governor. Is there a move by McCaskill? Is she this good that now she has Democrats helping keep him in office?
I don't think that's the case personally. You know, I've been one that's been pretty critical of everybody, right? I'm fair across the board.
Pour it out equal, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that's the case in this manner. But what I will say is, moving back to Josh Hawley, something that I heard earlier, when we talk about politics, if you think about it, he has nothing to lose, because I mean he's running for Senate. And his actual race wouldn't be up until 2020, if I'm not mistaken, as Attorney General. And so to say that this couldn't be seen as a political move in that manner is not, you know, that's not a fair assessment either. What Republicans always say, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So when we look at one side being political, we gotta look at both sides being political, and also to say that Eric Greitens has no dedication or loyalty to the Republican Party. I mean, try sitting on the side where you're one of 47 who our minimum wage was taken away, right to work was signed into law, HCB3 was vetoed. I mean, to us, that shows a little bit of loyalty to the Republican agenda.
What do you think, though? Is it a coincidence now that folks that support Claire McCaskill are saying, well, let's look at the process. Maybe we should stretch this out a little bit. Keep Eric Greitens around a little bit longer. Is there not some push on the other side to say, while the Republicans are in a dumpster fire, why not keep them there a little longer?
I can never guess the strategy of federal campaigning. That is, that's something that I never want to take a bet on. But I'm with Representative Franks. I think that there's politics on both sides happening, and I just want to see how this plays out, because I think that we're in the right place right now, where things are moving and we're actually asking the right questions. And let's just keep going.
It's interesting. Josh Hawley has to take on dark money from San Francisco, from Washington. The governor has consultants from San Francisco, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., New York, all coming to bear on Josh Hawley. And he stood up and did the right thing. It is now interesting now that you have alignment with all those our Claire McCaskill supporters wanting to maybe see the Republicans suffer longer.
Yeah, I think Josh Hawley, again, has demonstrated a lot of courage here. And
probably is the de facto leader of the party right now.
Yeah, he showed a lot of leadership this week, and he gets a whole lot of credit, probably from a legal standpoint, on being able to dig into this serious matter and find what the truth was.
And credit the Missouri Republican Party. They have engaged in some of the ridiculousness with Greitens for a while. They did not jump into the latest, display of idiocy that came out this week. So maybe they are holding a line there.
Yeah, I mean, they're in a very difficult position right now,
awful.
Put there by Eric Greitens.
Everyone in the state Republican Party
Absolutely, and it affects every one of our candidates up and down the ticket. And there's only one person responsible for that. That's Eric Greitens. It's not Kim Gardner. It's not the Democratic Party. It's certainly not George Soros. It's Eric Greitens and his own behavior.
I've always said anybody that believes the Soros stuff, I have some beautiful oceanfront condos in West Butler County. You can direct message me on Twitter. Let's talk the last point on this, the condition of state government. Bruce Franks, there's a Commission on Public Buildings. It needs members from the governor's office, the AG, lieutenant governor. Obviously, those folks don't get along right now. They're trying to pull them together for a meeting. They can't even pull them together for a meeting because of some of the ridiculousness coming out of the governor's office and restraining orders. State government's not in a good place right now, just to be honest, is it?
No. Even stretching beyond this, if we just look at the capacity of what's going on, and you think about no matter who we support or what party we are, we have the person who is the head of our government here in the state, and to see everything that's happening and affect a lot of the processes and affect a lot of the things that need to happen. Kind of like in this manner, when you have a governor who has decided to file a restraining order on the Attorney General, which makes everything a lot harder when it comes to the process, when they have to be in these certain meetings and we have to get these certain votes or so on and so forth. So I just think that the state of politics right now and the state of our government actually is, in a bit of a
I think you have to look, if you're just a person that shows up to work, right, and all of a sudden the governor who you just read this disgusting report about wants a picture with you, what do you do? I mean, it puts you in a terrible spot.
I think it's also so frustrating to people knowing that there are folks, like the folks at this table, who are trying so hard to get things done in Jefferson City, and this it stops so much important work and defies all of the regular rules that happen in Jefferson City and in the Capitol.
Last question, Matt Dogan. Some folks give Speaker Richardson a little grief for not moving quicker. I was in Jefferson City. I think that his caucus may not have been completely ready to deal with some of this. I think his temperance and the way he went about it, I think they're well crossed the threshold of Republicans they were going to need to sign for special session. It looked to me like it was probably the right move, and it's very Todd Richardson to move very slowly and deliberately and effectively.
That's right. And whatever comes out of that investigative committee, you need to make sure that if they're going to have recommendations on punishment, that it's 100% airtight. So you need to give them the time. If they finish their work early, then great, but we need to give them all the time they need.
Can I get a commitment right now? If this restraining order holds up, you'll file a restraining order against a designated hitter? I want to thank everybody. We'll be right back. Panel sticking around. Segment 2 coming up after this.
In 2008, Republic Services acquired the Bridgeton landfill in a merger. Since then, we've invested $200 million to clean up the site and to maintain environmental compliance. We do that while staffing the facility 24/7. That's because we support permanent solutions that are safe for our neighbors and clean up the environment. We're committed to doing what's right. That's what drives us every day. We're a part of the community, and we're here for the long haul. Republic Services. We'll handle it from here.
My name is Eric Philippi. I'm a veteran, a carpenter, and a father. When Eric Greitens said he was going to change politics as usual, Folks like me didn't think the first thing he'd do as governor was take dead aim at our jobs and our families' livelihoods by working to repeal prevailing wage. Call Governor Greitens. Tell him to protect prevailing wage and to protect my family, not destroy it.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
At Ameren, Missouri, we know what light can do. It draws people together and chases monsters away. And if you shine it in the right direction, it will light the path for the next generation, showing them what their tomorrow could look like and spotlighting the possibilities that lay in front of them. Investing in our community by lighting the way forward. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome to this week in Missouri politics. I'm talking a little legislation right now. This week, floor debate on the Veterans Bill. Representative Franks, you had an amendment. Tell us about it.
So I had a standalone bill that I filed earlier in the year that would basically make Missouri adopt a Veterans Bill of Rights. Other states have done it. I think it's a good way to not only show that we stand by our veterans, but to take some of the processes that are being put in place and kind of put some teeth to them, right? To put them in statute to say, well, this is what we're going to make sure happens. It was a really good bill. It was basically became this omnibus veterans bill that had some really good amendments on there from Nick Schroer as well as Steve Lynch. And I thank Senator Wallingford as well as Charlie Davis for carrying it. It was an interesting debate. I was able to offer the amendment on the floor. We hadn't really talked about it, but we got to kind of hash it out on the floor. So I thank them for that debate. Interesting part was Representative Reich from Boone County. She decided to stand up and talk about the National Guard in Ferguson and talk about certain disrespects that maybe she heard about or just kind of talked about in her circle. And I thought it was a really good opportunity to bring some truth to the matter as well as bridge some gaps and kind of smooth things over because I'm a person that was out there.
And you were doing things that would have actually helped codify in statute the people that were serving
Absolutely.
on the National Guard.
Absolutely. And it was, I mean, I'm glad she said what she said. It was the elephant in the room that somebody wanted to say. So I'm glad she stood up and said it. I wish she just would have said it to me personally. But it was a good conversation to have, and it passed out of the Senate as well. So,
Jonathan Brown, let's talk about an issue. You've got two rising stars now, Representative Gene Evans, Representative David Gregory, working in conjunction with Josh Hawley to strengthen the Missouri Sunshine Law. I think that bill is moving towards passage, and I'm assuming it'll get overridden if it's vetoed.
Yeah, well, the first thing is I'm glad to see that we're able to talk about some real issues here, and we've kind of broken through this Greitens cause logjam. But second of all, yeah, I mean it's a big win for the Attorney General, another big win, and a loss for the Greitens administration. I mean, the Attorney General basically has said that if this passes, this will give him the ability to go back and reopen that Confide investigation. So this could be just yet another problem for Eric Greitens, but it's good for transparency and it's certainly good for Josh Hawley.
Let's talk about that Sunshine Law bill. Does that pass?
I think it passes overwhelmingly when it gets over to the Senate.
And I think that is a Senate bill that, regardless of any of the other politics, they're waiting to get and run with. Is my take from the Senate. It's a Sunshine Law bill. It is. We have a weak Sunshine Law. It is almost, if they don't want to follow it, they almost can. You almost have to have a lot of money just to sue them, and you'd have to sue them all the time. I think this is something that Republicans and Democrats can do that's actually good for the state and needed.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even if you just look at the investigation right now, it's been helpful and could be even more helpful in finding out information that would be needed in this investigation.
You really an analog bill in a digital age or a Confide age even, and I just think you've got folks that the law never imagined some of these things. It's interesting to me how I've watched you break things down on a better level that regular people that may not live and die with these things can understand. The Sunshine Law is not written for the media. The Sunshine Law is written for you know, a person working at an insurance agency in St. Louis City or a gun store in Kennett. It's their people, it's their tax dollars, it's their information, and I think it's time they had a real way to access and get it.
Absolutely. I think that often when we think about sunshine laws, we think about the lawyers and folks
Media,
who are,
yeah.
you know, in these particular positions who need this information. But I think about our case that we had to fight through, and one of the issues that we had to deal with was our sunshine request to the Board of Election, which we actually end up winning. But there was, you know, some red tape and some issues around that. So anything that makes it easier for the taxpayers, you know, to get more transparency and see what's going on, I'm all for. And I thank both of them for bringing forth that bill.
Steph Perkins, an issue I've heard you say that you will talk about every week until it passes. Tell us about Mona. Where's that? Where it's at right now?
Mona it has not had a hearing in the House or in the Senate.
Break down what it is.
Yeah, so it add sexual orientation and gender identity as protected categories to our existing Human Rights Act around discrimination in employment, housing, and public accommodations.
Let me ask you a question. This is what I hear the pushback on. Do people in the state of Missouri, one, first of all, can you be fired for being gay in the state of Missouri, and that's the only reason?
Our state law, yes, absolutely.
Now, here's the second question. Here's the one I always put my eyebrow up on. Is that happening?
Yes, I talked to a man yesterday who was fired in Missouri for being gay blatantly, and over time faced systematic harassment and discrimination because he was gay.
Is that something that is documented? Are there cases people can go look at? Because I always just think, you know, honestly, it helps humanize a problem if you see somebody that had that problem. Are those cases out there where people can go talk to folks or contact or just read about?
Yeah, actually, this coming Wednesday, the Missouri Supreme Court is hearing a case where a man got fired, the Lampley case. He got fired for being gay. The case is around sex stereotyping instead of sexual orientation, but he got fired, and a coworker is also part of that case because she was retaliated against for standing up for him.
Shemenda Dogan, we talked about this bill on the show a couple weeks ago. This just seems like something that's going to happen in time and maybe shorter than people think.
I hope it does. As you probably know, I had a Mona amendment last year on Senate Bill 43. And I always like to remind people that just because something's not happening to you doesn't mean it's not happening.
Yep.
Whether it's discrimination against LGBT folks, discrimination against black folks, people in the Boot Heel, your neck of the woods. You know, I'm not necessarily hip on everything that's going down the Boot Heel. My parents are from there, but I never spent much time there other than the summers.
Wonderful. You should come down.
It's a great place. I need to go back and see some of my family.
This is an issue that is challenging for Republicans. It's an issue Democrats have come to, but it does look like it's now an issue where there's at least a third of that caucus that's openly for it, and maybe if it got to a vote, you might see close to half that caucus vote for it.
Yeah, you know, I think this is a generational issue more than it is a partisan issue, and I think you're seeing a lot of younger Republicans who are in support of it, and that's, I think, probably the future of the party in the long run.
You can read people. I think half that Republican caucus, if this was secret ballot, maybe 2/3 vote for this bill if it ever gets to the floor in a package way where they can. Maybe a compromise language, but it seems to me like this bill is coming. It's just when.
Yeah, I think about the debate last year. Well, just the floor discussion about Mona, and it was an emotional discussion, and we had folks from both sides stand up, including one of the gentlemen who I respect probably almost more than anybody over there, Jim Henson.
Yep.
He got up and gave a really good testimony, and I just think for folks to think that this doesn't happen. My stepson just dealt with a situation.
I think some people really do think it doesn't happen because they don't know anybody and they don't know a story. I think there's some people that earnestly believe that.
Oh, and I do too, but they have to listen to those lived experiences. My stepson just went through something last week. He's gay, and he was treated unfairly and unjustly by a member or a preacher who was running this prayer club that he is part of. And it's something that we're going through right now. We're fighting, and it bothers me when folks who use their religion kind of as this shield to discriminate. When, you know, if you look at so many different scriptures and you look at the Bible, you look at all these different things, a lot of it is left up to interpretation. But to believe that Jesus, you know, if that's who they believe in, wouldn't love everybody for who they were, that's a problem.
You know, Representative Dogan, I hear some groups that when there's a gay person that wants to buy a wedding cake, they want to rub their values all over the place. But when the governor takes the state to the most shameful, sleazy places, I don't hear about the values.
Well, I think the defense of the governor, you can have a legalistic defense of him, but it really kind of reminds me of people who defended Bill Clinton. You're not defending him on the substance. And in this case, there's no conservative values you're sticking up for when you stick up for Eric Greitens. So I don't see why the defense is still there.
Be interesting to see folks that preen about leadership and values that are silent today when they want to come out and talk about it, let's say next October.
You know, it does happen. It happens on both sides, unfortunately.
Gambling in this town. Let's talk about one thing that is a very substantive deal, and that's some legislation you have about the yacht codes. What's going on there?
So we've been doing a lot on occupational licensing. You know, I passed my hair braiding bill out. It was one of the first 3 bills we passed in the House. And this week we held a great debate and passed out a very broad occupational licensing reform. And the idea is just that government gets its hands in way too much stuff and prevents people from being able to even have a job. And so the burden of proof when the government wants to have a regulation on your occupation should be on them, not on you. I
actually was a licensed professional wrestling referee, so I can attest to this.
That's right.
So this is what Republicans do, right? When they're doing what they need to do, this is what they do.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the best part of our platform is removing barriers for people to have opportunity.
This makes sense, right? I mean, there's some of the regulations there for a reason, but sometimes there could be too many.
Oh, so you won't get any pushback from me in this particular matter because I actually supported Representative Dogan's bill. I just want the folks on the other side to kind of take this argument with every faction, right? Because we talking about occupational licenses and those taking away those challenges and barriers. But then we have a state where we voted in voter ID. We have a body that doesn't want to push for automatic voter registration. I mean, we got all these other obstacles that we could be cutting out and these challenges and barriers that we could be cutting out. So although I support this particular measure.
Just want to see it go forward?
I just want to see it go across the board.
Step Pergs with a minute left, who won the week?
I would say Representatives Greg Brazier and Tom Hannigan. Hosting Capitol Pride. We had a bunch of people at Patty Malone's on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, talking to each other, having a good time, being social. It was excellent.
Who won the week?
My minority floor leader, Gail McCain-Beatty. The way that she's handled this whole Greitens situation, as well as that press conference she just had, she really stood up and let them know.
Who won the week?
Josh Hawley. He was fearless in his press conference, and he got the separation that he needed from Eric Greitens.
Who won the week?
Mary Elizabeth Coleman, running in the 97th district next to me. She outraised the incumbent, both of her primary opponents. She is a rock star.
She's a rising star in the party.
In the district next to mine, so I'm a huge supporter.
I'll leave you with Todd Richardson. There's folks that thought maybe the speaker should have been faster, slower, whatever. I think the support of his caucus is validating his plan, and no one in the whole state's in a tougher spot than him. We'll see you next week to talk about all these issues, probably the same ones, on This Week in Missouri Politics. This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you by Spire and Sterling Bank.